welcome to the shop. Got the FMS PA-18 1300 millimeter. I just did a review on the 1700 millimeter version, and it is just a big old STOL plane. Fantastic flyer. FMS sent me this, and I wanted to take this from think about this plane from a beginner perspective. I got the ready to fly version, which comes with a transmitter. It comes with a battery, it comes with a charger, it comes with everything you need to fly. This one also has the Reflex Gyro system that gives you optimization, kind of wind mitigation, self-leveling with stabilization mode, and then off. And I'm going to go through some of those things like I always do. We're going to unbox it, we're going to assemble it, I'm going to show you some of the things I did as far as modifications. We're going to maiden it. Prior to that, I'll show all my setup and everything I did. And then we'll have a fun flight, come back to the shop, and do a summary. Who's this plane for? Is this really a good beginner plane? Does it check all the boxes? And can it take you from that beginner state to, holy cow, you can do a lot of fun aerobatics, fly off snow, fly off water. It's the middle of the summer. I'm not going to be flying off snow or anything. But anyway, I do want to just kind of cover those things and kind of talk a lot about this plane from a beginner's perspective, not an expert pilot. So anyway, stick around for that. If you are interested in getting this plane, there is a link in the description below. Also, a coupon code for FMS. 10% off, save you a couple bucks. One other thing I'd like to ask is if you do like these videos, leave a comment, hit the like button, those kind of things. It means a lot. A lot of us who are making these videos, we spend a lot of hours putting these things together, producing them, and we want to know that they're worthwhile. I love getting those videos the comments from folks that said, hey, this was very helpful. So if you could do that, that's awesome. I love that kind of stuff. Anyway, all right, enough of me blabbering on. Let's get on with the video. I just flew and did a review on the 1700 version of this. This is the slightly more compact version of it. I want to share that with you, go through the same process of unboxing it and taking a look at all the parts and kind of getting my feel around what that assembly is going to look like. Lights, wad of cables. You got three plugs for each wing. Looks very similar to the larger one, except, these are plastic, foam hinges, ball links, obviously hard points for the wing struts. Manual. This is the ready to fly version, so it has that Fly Sky radio in it, and this one also has the Reflex Gyro. Carbon fiber spars, or maybe just black fiberglass. Spinner. So all the servos are installed. We'll need to install the control rod for the elevator, but everything else is done. Here you've got the cables that will need to get fished through. Got a prop, 11.7 prop. Very, very similar setup as the larger one, the 1.7. Again, kind of snap together. This piece is going to pull apart and then lock in place on the spar that you install. Where the landing gear is going to go, and obviously we have a float option as well. Everybody says under the hood here is a mess of cables, and they're right. There's quite a few cables back there. We're going to clean that up the best we can. But, I don't see it as overly daunting. Oh, got a little 2200 3S. Got the Fly Sky transmitter. And here is a charger for the battery. And the landing gear. Now, these tires are squishy. Very, very different than the tires on the larger one. These actually have little inflator valves on there. Pull that pin out there and you can pump these up if you want them harder or softer. Now we're going to go through, assemble this guy, and go from there. Okie dokie. What we're going to do is put the fuselage together. Got to get this significant amount of wire through that little hole in there. Where is it? Right there. And then push the halves together. Pretty simple. It's not a huge ordeal. A couple ways to do it. I like this method with a music wire. Attach these to there. And pull. Here's the tricky part on some of these. There's a little hole right there and underneath. There's a brass insert that you have a small screw. All the hardware. Got some springs, inflator for the tires. Kind of cool. It's pins, screws, push rods, all kinds of goodies. All right, so here I'm going to shove this in there and try to get it to bite. Sometimes they don't. This one is. You can feel it biting into the threads. I'm going to tighten it up just a little enough. When I look down, I can definitely tell that it doesn't line up perfectly. I got to go in at a little bit of an angle. There it is. It's biting now. All right, landing gear gets shoved down. And there's a couple parts. You got this, which goes right there. And then here we have a couple little different kind of clips. And you can tell they pretty much only go on this thing one way. And they snap into place. And we're going to get one of our screws. Okay, basically we got the struts that we got to put in at the same time. Comes with these, which are for back here for the floats. You're going to want to retain those, keep those. And we're going to so these struts only go in one way. Torque those down, and we're good. Got some springs here, and these springs are pretty taut. And what I do here is I take some of this very tough cordage, little string. You can use anything you want, I guess, monofilament or whatever. And I route it from there, under, and over. There's some slack in it, so I use a little flexible adhesive here. I use Yoo-Hoo Pour. You could use foam tack or whatever you want. And just make it so it doesn't flop around or come loose as far as the loops come off. I tie a little loop there, a little loop there, tie it all together. And that right there will allow, if the spring does pop, it'll still retain it. So at least there's a chance I won't have to be fishing for those springs. I also have a whole box of accessory springs that would probably fit it fine. Anyway, just wanted to kind of throw that out there. Putting in the tail, I don't think could be much simpler. Like a lot of these, again, the days of gluing everything together are coming to an end. It's kind of, some of these models, it's nice. Now I want that to click together. Really pushed hard on connecting this right here, and it moved quite a bit. So now there is no play at all. So that was my problem. I didn't have this locked in. So if you notice that yours is loose, you do not have it locked in. That little piece right there, these need to get squished together a little bit tighter. That's all. I need to add the elevator control rod, wings, and then we're into setup mode. All right, we're going to shove the carbon fiber spar through. And it's a pretty tight fit. There it goes. Gonna get the wings installed. And we've got some wires which we need to feed in to this cavity here. And I'm going to keep feeding those in as we slide this. This is going to require a little grabby tool to get these all pushed in, and then I can grab them, and as I'm sliding the wing on, I'm pulling on these wires. Actually, I can do it pretty well like this, I think. Just to make sure you don't pinch those wires. Make sure they're feeding in. Those fed in great. Gonna do this side. So for the wing, we have some screws here. And these are kind of the same kind of thing with a lot of these. We got to make sure we're biting into the threads, and this one is not, so we got to push it in a little harder, which is always kind of a two-man job almost. And I get this back one in, I can see that. And we have these pins going this direction. Okay, hold those down, and that wing's good to go. Need to do the other wing, and we're done. All right, we've got this mess here, and here's what we're going to do to clean this up. You'll notice here, and all of this is in the documentation, kind of, sort of. So on the receiver, because the receiver is going to control the flaps directly, they don't go through the reflex, which is down there. We're going to take flap from the left wing and plug that in. We're going to take flap from the right wing and plug that in, making sure that we have the polarity oriented right. Brown, okay. And then we're going to take one of, where to go? We got a light sticker here, and that is going to go in here. Again, make sure you got the polarity right. There's only two conductors, so it needs to go in the right spot. And to be honest, sometimes it's hard to push those in there. All right, so that's out of the way. Now we're going to do the ailerons. The ailerons do plug directly into the reflex. So that is right here. So we've got this, not a Y cable, but a three-way. And you don't have as much room as far as cable lengths coming out of the reflex, but we're going to put that one. We're going to put, let's find the, yeah, I had all these nice and clean, and now they're a mess. Here's a light, and 1, 2. Here we go. All right, here's this one. Here's the light, and here are these guys here. Just make sure I'm plugging this in the right way. There's the light, and that really gets pushed in hard. That goes in, and then we have this last one here for the other aileron. So all the ailerons plug into the unmarked cable coming out of the reflex. all of the flaps plug into the receiver that has a flap labeled three-way. All right, we're going to clean these cables up and organize them, zip time and such here in a minute. The other thing we have to do with this particular one is to put our rudder and elevator and connect them to the Reflex, which is right down in there. They are labeled on the other side. You can't see it, but over here, there's labels on what plug goes where and the polarity. So it's going to take me some work to get my head in there so I can see what the heck I'm doing. So we got the Reflex back here with the elevator and rudder. We've got the flaps, and we have a three-way cable coming out of here for the ailerons, which have all of the ailerons from both wings and the lights. So theoretically, I'm going to plug this in to a 3-cell battery, turn on the transmitter, and we should have everything we need up and running. Stay tuned. Let me get some batteries in that transmitter. So if I go left, the left aileron goes up. Right aileron goes up. Elevator. It's not connected yet because I wanted to make sure the servos are zeroed. If I go left on the rudder, it goes left and right. That's all working. That's great. Okay, so just got this thing plugged in, set up on the Reflex. All the control surfaces are working in the right direction, and it has a Reflex Gyro, which makes it so I can either flip it onto what's called optimized mode for wind mitigation. You can hear those servos working as I'm tilting. I could turn it off, or I could turn it into stabilized mode, which is self-level mode. So the Ready to Fly version with the Reflex has that. The other thing I always worry about with these is if I'm moving these ailerons and if I check the control throws, is it going to be too much? Because I can't dial down the rates on this. I can't do anything other than, you really can't do anything other than reverse and trimming, but that's a little awkward as well. But because it has a Reflex Gyro, I can reduce the rates, which is a big plus for these ready-to-fly systems that are lacking in some areas. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to test to make sure I've got the right rates, reduce those so it's flyable, and go through that process. But I think this is, on these ready-to-fly systems, with a Reflex, it really gives you some additional tools to make it so it's a little bit better to fly, a little bit more enjoyable. Still, we don't have any trims or anything or rates on the flaps, and in fact, you can't go full flap or else, because that's almost at a 90 degree. So you're just doing a little flap, one click. I wouldn't do any more, or we just adjust the heck out of the control surfaces with the. There's really not much we can do there either. Looking underneath, anyway, those are some of the limitations, the trade-offs to these things. So we have these rates in the manual. 14 to 18 on elevator, 12, 16 on aileron. And here's what we're going to do. We're going to measure this. I'll put my handy dandy little measurer right there. And I'm going to measure those ailerons. So that's over 20. Yeah, it's over 20. So for most pilots, that's going to be way too much. So we're going to reduce that. And I'm going to reduce it a couple ways. One is we can make changes to to the ailerons, the push rods, or we're going to get into the reflex system. And we're going to connect now. Allow this reflex, we're going to connect to it. It's connected. The password usually on these is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Connect. Okay. I'm connected. If I move things around, you'll notice that some of these things are changing just ever so slightly. We're going to change parameter settings and optimize mode sensitivity. I'm going to leave that there, but over here, optimize and manual mode active bar for ailerons, we're going to reduce that. I'm going to reduce that to 57. Say synchronize. Now remember, this was over 20 when I tested it just a second ago. And now it's about 12. I didn't have to change anything mechanically. This does it for me. I'm going to go into safe mode or stabilize mode, and it's still really high, so we need to go back into parameters. And optimize, we're going to angle adjustment, we're going to reduce that so it won't go as high, and we're going to, because we know the elevator is going to be a little bit, we're going to reduce that. Rudder sensitivity, there's nothing we can do about that. We're going to say synchronize. And now I'm going to put this back in optimize mode and like that. We've reduced that elevator a little bit. I'm going to see how much we reduced it, maybe too much. Now when we measure that elevator, yeah, we're at about 15. And I'm going for flyability. I'm not going for crazy aerobatics. I'm just going for, I just want this to fly well. So what I've done is use the reflex to make changes to the throws instead of doing it mechanically. And that's the nice thing about this reflex system. So now we're all done with that. And we're going to get out, and that's it. I'm going to turn it off, turn it back on, and test everything. Okay, this ready-to-fly version. The radio, as I said, doesn't have rates and expo and things like that. But you can change the amount of throw by either mechanically or doing it through reflex. I did it through the reflex. Here, basically how I have everything set up, and we're going to go to the field and maiden this thing. We have the FMS Super Cub, the small version, the 1.3, and plugging her in. So we're at the field, and there's no throttle cut on these things, which I love to complain about. Alright, we're in optimize mode. And we're gonna take this thing down the runway and just make sure the radio's working okay. In order to range check these, I'd have to basically get in my car and drive down the other side of the park. Call my buddy to see if the plane's still working. We're not going to do that. Okay. Gonna take off right here going this way. Quickly take a look at the trim. Let's go up a little. And the trim on this, really don't know. There's no monitor or anything. And I got spanking a little bit. Back off on throttle here. We got a 3S 2200. It's not bad. Not bad at all for a maiden flight. Okay, so this is set up on optimize, which means it does not self-level. So I'm going to flip it into self-level mode. This is self-level mode, and it will limit how much I can bank. Got the all the way over. Banks quite a bit. And it limits how much you can go up. So on pull back, and it kind of just limits it. So no loops or anything on the stabilization mode. I'm going to flip it back to optimize. And now we're going to flip in a little flap. Now, again, we don't have any mix. So this is the half flap. Full flap would be ridiculous. It's almost 90 degrees, but this is half flap, and it doesn't fly bad. All right, maiden flight with the ready to fly stuff. I think, you know, it flies fine. From a beginner's perspective, pretty happy. All right, let's try to bring it in for a nice land in here. Let's see if we can do this. A little rough touch and go. By the way, there's a lot of rudder on this thing. I would mechanically reduce that if you can. Got a little too cute there with my very aggressive rudder on it. Sun in my eyes a little bit. It's nice. All right. Turn the flaps off. We're going to bring it in here for a landing because I didn't set a timer on my phone. So I have no idea how long I've been flying. Okay. Oh. All right, let me hit the throttle cut, which is unplug it. Okay, we're done. Welcome back. All right, so let's talk about this from a fit finish assembly perspective. You know, and I got to say that, as you saw in the video, everything went together very easily. Yes, you have to run some cables through. There's a lot of cables that need to get connected. This is not a plane that you're going to take the wing on and off. It's small enough, 1.3, to fit in the vehicle. Everything looked good. The squishy tires, the lights, plenty of power in the motor, everything very solid. I can't think of anything on here that wasn't a thumbs up from that perspective. I do want to talk about the ready to fly pieces and parts. So this FlySky transmitter works. I did several flights with it. I probably have, 8 or 9 flights. Other people I gave the transmitter to had them fly it, and it worked. The flap mixing is not existent. You can only really do half flap because full flap was ridiculous. The controls, I reduced the rates on optimized so it wasn't so sensitive, and I did that with the Reflex, which is an easy way to do it. So from that perspective, if you want to spend a couple extra bucks and get this ready to fly version, that's fine, but there's limitations in it, right? There's no throttle cut. The mixing and programming and such are a little, well, they're basic, and you kind of get what you pay for. Battery and the charger, they work. It takes well over an hour to charge that one battery. So that's where, again, it works, and it gets you into to say, you know what, this is a lot of fun, I like it, now I'm gonna get another radio. FlySky makes a programmable radio, for like 60 bucks that you could use. I've used it before, it's a little clunky, and again, you get what you pay for. If you're serious about getting into the hobby, I would recommend you get a higher end programmable radio. I fly Spectrum. I also have FR Sky. A lot of people do Radio Master. There's Futaba. There's a lot of other options out there. A little higher end. If you think that this is what you want to do, I highly recommend. It's fine to start with this, but you're going to end up with a nicer radio. So you might want to think about that. Most important thing, flight performance. This is a beginner plane. It flies slow. It's durable. Bounced these landing gear a couple times. Landing in grass. Had other people fly it. It is a slow fly, simple, kind of plane. It's a beginner plane. But it also does some pretty cool aerobatics. You dial up the throws, and now you have something that you can unleash. And I like that fact that this plane is dual purpose. As an experienced pilot, you could have a lot of fun doing STOL type for the takeoffs and landings, as well as aerobatics. It'll do it all. And I'm going to have many more videos on that. I didn't show too much in this video because, frankly, the video is well over 30 minutes long, and you all have had enough of me blabbing on and talking about this plane. So, anyway, performance-wise, I think it's a big plus. Who is this plane for? Like I said, a new pilot get the RTF, or they already have an option to get a transmitter. I think a new pilot would benefit from this. And as you all know, I think the best way to learn to fly planes is with a buddy box. That reduces the amount of gluing and repair work you'll have to do. But you're an experienced pilot, this plane you'll have a blast with. If you don't want to invest in the large one, I'm a big fan of, bigger flies better. But this flies exceptionally well, nice and slow, but yet gobs of power. Love it. Anyway, so if you are interested in this plane, in the description below, there's a link to this, to FMS store, as well as I will include a 10% discount for this plane. If you so wish to use it, save you a couple bucks. Again, if you have any questions, please leave a comment, hit that like button, those kind of things. Sure enjoy. Read those comments and reply, as well as, it makes me feel good about doing these videos. Anyway, have a great day. Thanks for watching.